Surf's Up. Once upon a time, there was a brand new studio called Sony Pictures Animation that began to enter the animation industry when Pixar and DreamWorks really made a name out of themselves. They were a rather simple studio, trying to find their voice and pursuing to put their mark in the industry with Open Season and this film to launch their business. And what have they become now? Nothing but an entire laughingstock of the industry run by some of the most incompetent people in the business that only knows how to make bad decisions and terrible cartoons with poor taste and low quality geared only for dumb children that always fail to make anything new and leave all their creative talents to quit in bad terms because they force out franchises or shouldn't even be franchises that only give out short-term revenue, and now even Sony Pictures themselves are releasing animated films without the Sony Pictures Animation name, which will eventually lead the studio to their shutdown. But before all that, they were a simple and humble animation studio. So when they released their second animated feature, did Surf's Up hit the high tides for Sony? Or did their streak of terrible animated features started before Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? Let's find out! The story. Well, in all honesty, the story itself has very little to offer. It's just your typical underdog story where the hero starts by being laughed off and then meets his mentor and then they train so that he can come back a winner in everyone's hearts. We've all heard and seen this Karate Kid style story, and this film doesn't do much to make the plot feel any different from the rest, even if they try to offer us surfing penguins. Now at this point, I think I lost everyone's interest for this film. It's just your typical dumb kids flick with lazy writing, right? No. Far from it, actually. You see, Surf's Up is not about the journey itself, nor is it about the concept of surfing penguins. It's all about the execution. The movie is completely told through this documentary style that explains everything through stock footage, sportscast, and plenty of interviews. That way, it gives this dull plot a new breath of life, and it manages to explain the mindset of what these characters have to go through. I mean, sure, with the whole penguin aspect, it's not as completely believable as Waltz with Bashir, but it still gives this new level of believability, resulting the film to be a lot more engaging than it should. Also, the interviews aren't the only times when the characters interact with the camera. Even when the story progresses, they sometimes bring in the crew to interact with their situations.
Yeah, I'll be back.
No, I won't!
I'll be back. Hey, you guys like barbecue?
Yeah, sure.
Got some wood here.
In a weird way, it's like they're breaking the fourth wall and make us feel like we're a part of the film. This is why the execution is so important in a movie. In the right hands, it can make a bland and predictable story into an enjoyable one. The animation. Okay, I need a bit of time to really let this sink in. This is actually made by Sony Pictures Animation? Compared to their later works, the animation here actually looks good. Watchable even. For once, it feels like it was done by real professionals who know what they're doing, and the characters don't move around in such a cartoony and over-the-top way to distract the more simple-minded audience from the lack of effort that was put onto the writing. To start off with the penguins, there's actually a good balance of artistry in their design. They're not as hyper-realistic as the ones in Happy Feet, but they're also not as anthropomorphically cartoony as the ones in The Pebble and the Penguin. It somehow captures the right style of what can be used for a computer animated film. Same goes to the other birds like Chicken Joe and Mikey. It's also a really nice touch how they gave some unique patterns to characters like Tank and Geek. As for the character animation, the movements are more natural and smooth, as well as work within their limits. But I will say that the surfing scenes are highly engaging and great to watch. The only criticism I would have with the animation is that the backgrounds aren't necessarily special. Well, they do look nice, but like Geek said.
Yeah, it's a beach. Sand, water, sun. You seen one, you seen them all. Come on.
But then there is one component that can be easily overlooked, yet it's what makes it so unique from any other animated feature, and that is how it uses the camera. Throughout the film, they always move the camera around in a subtle manner that feels like someone's holding it all the time. Not to mention how there can be water drops in the lens when the crew is following Cody in the water, the vintage feel when they cut to a backstory, or when they're filming at night and there's a little bit of image noise. In short, the movie took very careful attention to the cinematography in order to capture that documentary-style realism. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Sony actually did a great job in the animation. The characters. If this movie were handled like your regular animated feature, this would possibly be the blandest group of characters you'd ever see. On one hand, yes, their roles in the film are very generic and follow the same formula beat by beat. You got Cody as the protagonist that's following his dreams, Lonnie as the love interest, Tank as the heartless villain, Geek as the mentor, Chicken Joe as the comic relief, Reggie Belafonte is the selfish Hollywood-style agent, and Mikey is Reggie's assistant that has to do everything for him. In concept, they're just old cookie-cutter characters that were done several times before to the point that it's just tiring now. However, when you bring in the documentary-style execution, these characters suddenly take on a new life. It takes its time to look into the history of these characters so that we can understand what they're going through and what their situations mean to them. On top of that, we often see how they are when they're casual instead of focusing on what's going on with the story, resulting the characters to feel really believable and even likable. But then you have the directors of the film, Ash Brandon and Chris Buck. Believe it or not, they actually are characters in this film as the crew filming everything that's been going on. Not only lending their own voice, but it's even written on the chalkboard at the start of the film.
So why are you guys here to interview me?
It's what we do. We're a reality film crew.
Should I know some of the questions before we start? Just so I don't...
just, they're easy.
Even if they're just filming, you can definitely feel their presence whenever the camera points to a character, either acknowledging the camera and know that whatever they do will go public, or just treat them like any other penguin in the island. Sometimes, in order to get some believable characters, you just need to capture them during their leisure time. In concept, this movie is absolutely bland with a dull and predictable story and generic characters. But in execution, Surf's Up delivers a very unique animated feature where its documentary style gives it a new level that makes it believable, engaging, funny, and really fascinating, topping it off with some well-crafted animation. This movie will absolutely appeal to surfing fans, but it is also worth checking out just to experience something completely different, and a good different at that. It's not every day that you see an animated film try to be a documentary. Honestly, I don't really understand how Sony Animation is just ignoring this film and prominently feature their most recent disasters as examples of their work. I mean, I get that it wasn't a hit at the box office, but it is their only film that got an Oscar nomination, and with good reason. I get that they want to stand out from all the other studios, but if they ever want to save themselves from doom and be taken more seriously in the industry, they need to consider looking back at this. Not to make a Surf's Up 2, I mean just to look back at what they did right here. Hey guys, this is AniMat. Now, I just gotta say that not only is Surf's Up Sony Pictures Animation's greatest movie that they have ever done, there's like no argument there. Well, that is if you don't count the ones that they've associated themselves with Aardman, like Arthur Christmas or The Pirates. But this could possibly be one of the greatest penguin movies there is out there. The only other film that I could think of that could be in competition for that title would be March of the Penguins. But with Surf's Up, this is definitely something I would take over films like The Pebble and the Penguin and even Happy Feet, and that one actually won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. But if there is one thing that I do have to say about Sony Pictures Animation, now I know over the years, like, I would constantly slap them for their mistake and, like, bash them to bits with every stupid decision that they've done, rather it be business-wise or for making terrible movies like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Smurfs, and Hotel Transylvania. But it is also a sign of warning. Now, some of you might think that I would be more than happy to see them die. Well, that may not be the case. I am honestly just slamming them for their mistakes and errors so that they could do better. I want them to go and take my advice, or else they'll eventually be dead. And considering the amount of bad decisions that they've done, to the point that whenever they want to try something new, rather it be like Popeye or Medusa, they end up having so much creative differences to the point that they're just losing their creative talents. Like, they would lose like Lauren Faust, maybe Jandy Tartakovsky, and they even lost Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And they ended off leaving in bad terms by quoting, what was the quote again? Ah, yes. Okay, I remember. That it's too hard to make great work there, and that the animators are pretty much just treated like paper. It really is going terribly at Sony Pictures Animation. Like, the scenario that I feel that's going on right now is that Sony is going down like this really steep hill, and everybody is just laughing at them, laughing at Sony, because it's going down that hill in such an over-the-top fashion, like, oh my god, this is wacky! When I feel like I'm the only one that sees the brick wall that, like, is filled with sharp knives that it's going to crash into, and it's going to, like, not only hurt itself, but eventually destroy itself. So that's the thing. I'm not just slamming them for their mistakes. I'm also warning them to stop milking franchises that should never even be franchises. Like, just let things like The Smurfs, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and Hotel Transylvania die, let go, just move on, and create something new. And don't screw up with the creative talents. Just let them go do what they want. You don't need dumb advertisings and try to be hip with the young cool kids Alvin and the Chipmunk style. It's a sign of warning. I want them to do better. But if they're going to keep making bad decisions, don't come crying to me when they shut down. I warned them. They're just not listening. But anyways, now that that's it with Surf's Up, it's now that we go and move on to a Patreon request. Yes, believe it or not, we got another one, and this time is going to be from Chris Estrada. Now, this is actually his second time requesting it. This is for a special pledge on Patreon, and he previously requested me The Legend of the Titanic, which, of course, is one of the worst animated films that I've seen and ever reviewed. But anyways, I just want to say, though, that if you guys want to be like Chris and you want to go and support my work and get some awesome rewards at the same time, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. Or if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put in the animation hat, then write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So, with all that said, you guys might be wondering, what is it that Chris requested me this time? Oh boy. Pray for me.